Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Friday, November 6th, 2020, and today we're going to be talking about how the Democratic Party performed / is expected to perform by the end of this 2020 election season. So, we're roughly 4 days into the election, and I know things are looking okay for Democrats on the presidential level. If everything holds as it stands, the Democratic Party should win the presidency, ironically, Joe Biden being the Democrat, with 306 electoral votes. If you don't know why that's ironic, it's because that was Donald Trump's number in 2016. He gets 232. That was Hillary Clinton's number in 2016. So it'd be a very interesting scenario. Be very funny. The Democrats are poised to pick up the states of Georgia and Pennsylvania, neither of which have been called by the Associated Press, but Wisconsin, Michigan, and Arizona have been called by the Associated Press. So by the end of the evening or tomorrow morning, we probably will see a President-elect Biden called by the media. And there's partial reason as to why the media has not called it yet. I don't know if you've realized, but the media gets a lot of money from consistent viewership. When you're looking at CNN's coverage, MSNBC, Fox News, one of the main reasons why they haven't covered the race is because once they do, people will tune out. Nobody really cares about how North Carolina will end up in 2 weeks. If they can draw this on for 4 days, then they can draw it on for 4 days. We have numerous outstanding ballots in Pennsylvania and Georgia, not necessarily numerous for the case of Georgia, but outstanding ballots that technically could alter the race if Trump was able to win them 80-20. But as we've seen with the already, cast mail-in ballots, Biden's been winning them 80-20. So I really think that the media is just waiting even longer because they technically can. To be 100% confident, I would wait too. But they could just be 99.99% confident and call the race right now. They could have called it this morning. As soon as Biden took the lead in Pennsylvania, it was game over. Trump wasn't returning because the outstanding vote was in Philadelphia and other Democratic counties. But I want to talk about why I think the Democratic Party might be looking for new leadership and what actually, they gave up this election season. The Democratic Party had a lot of potential. I'm just going to say that now. They had a lot of potential. What do I mean by that? Pickups, not only in the Senate or the House of Representatives, but flipping states that hadn't flipped in a while on the presidential map. When we're looking at this, the Democratic Party really thought that they had potential in some of these key states that have already been called for Trump or Trump is currently leading. That includes states such as North Carolina and Florida, two of which in any regular year where Georgia was going blue, they would follow suit, but that just seems to be not the case this time. Now, Georgia's not absolute. Georgia is not absolute. I'm just characterizing that because that's where Biden leads right now. Things could change. They probably won't, but they could change. So keep that in mind. But the fact Georgia has proven itself to be voting to the left of both North Carolina and Florida, it is possible, that the Democrats could have carried these two states had they ran their campaign slightly differently. The Biden campaign says that they have no regrets about how they ran their campaign. Usually that's a show of strength. As we saw through election night and even through this day, there were a number of fumbled opportunities for the Democrats. Another two states that typically vote together, Ohio and Iowa. These two states voted for Obama in both 2008 and 2012. They voted for Trump in 2016. And people were expecting them to narrow up. Iowa went to Trump by 9. Ohio went by 8. But guess what the margins were this time? 8 and 8. Nothing changed. Literally nothing changed. Despite a lot of other parts of the country going to the left, these states remain the same. Despite Nebraska's 2nd district and Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania voting to the left of where they were in 2016, these states remained literally the exact same. So that's already 68 electoral votes that potentially could have been won by the Democrats. Now I'm going to add on an additional 39. Maine 2nd District and Texas. I think that this state itself, Texas, is really an eyesore for the Democratic Party. Not because, just the fact that Donald Trump won it. I don't think a lot of Democrats were expecting to win it. But because they see a blue Georgia, they see a blue Arizona, two states that narrowed from 2012 versus the 2016 results, and they thought Texas was in play. Now it absolutely will be in play in future elections, and technically, even based on the results I see, was in play this time. Texas was closer than 2016, and the only thing that the Democratic Party, when I say only thing, this is a huge thing, but still, the only thing that they really messed up on was Latino outreach, winning over Latino voters. And when you're looking at Texas, sure, Biden did better amongst white voters. He did better amongst white women, especially suburban women. But the catch was The lack of Latino support that we, insanely underestimated. We insanely underestimated it for Trump. That was enough to counteract, all of the gains that Biden made. Sure, he did better than Hillary, but also, first of all, low bar. I mean, Hillary Clinton didn't exactly perform as well as she could have in the state of Texas. Given the fact that she won Latino voters by such an astounding margin, speaks to her as a candidate, number one, but also speaks to the lack of outreach that the Democratic Party had for this election as well. Not only was Hillary able to appeal to these voters very well, these voters clinged on to Donald Trump the second time. They didn't do it the first time. And I think that's a testament to Hillary Clinton, but also a testament to how poorly the Democratic Party ran this part of the Democratic campaign. Now, if they win, they win. But we are seeing negative effects on the Democrats because of this lack of outreach, not just on the presidential level. They had an additional, 38 electoral votes from Texas that they easily could have won. If Miami-Dade County voted in the margin that it did in 2016, Florida would be blue right now. Keep that in mind. So, again, loss of support in Florida, in Texas amongst Latino voters, crucial demographics in these states. But Arizona and Colorado and Nevada seem to be proving otherwise. So again, very weird election year. But the Democrats had a potential to get a 413 electoral college victory. They didn't really come close. So the next thing I want to take a look at is the Senate. This is where the Democratic Party really could have shined. We see so many competitive races. And yet on election night, either they became very solid for the GOP, and I will say that it's probably a combination of skewed polling averages. I fell victim to some of these margins. Now, polling really will be invalidated. I'll tell you that much. Even if Biden wins this election, we probably won't be trusting polls as much because the Senate results were horrible in comparison to the actual ones. And when you're looking at some of these competitive races, tens of millions of dollars was poured into it, and it ended up with Republicans winning all across the nation. And I mean that very literally. The Democrats had a very real chance at winning Montana, a very real chance at winning Iowa, North Carolina, South Carolina, Maine, Kansas, Alaska. All of these states at one point in time were single digits. Every single one of them at one point in time was single digits. In fact, in the majority of these states, the Democratic Party ran closer than what Biden was expected to do. And that actually did happen for the case of some of these states. But I just wanted to point out, these were 7 Senate races that the Democratic Party spent and combined hundreds of millions of dollars in, and they ended up losing horribly. And this is not because the Democrats didn't field strong candidates. Teresa Greenfield, very strong candidate in Iowa. Cal Cunningham, with the exception of a scandal, originally very strong candidate in North Carolina. He wasn't too well known, but those are the type of candidates that do well. And he's on track to lose. It's possible he wins. Very, very slim. We're talking less than 5%. It's possible. I don't think it's likely. That's why I haven't characterized it blue. But South Carolina, Jamie Harrison, he has some type of campaign tactic that reminds me of Obama, reminds me of Beto O'Rourke, reminds me of Pete Buttigieg in the way that he speaks. And he'll probably be a nationally known name following his loss in the election. And that race, while the results may have proven that the Republicans actually had a stronger hold on it than we thought, it also was combined to the fact that we underestimated President Trump's support in this state. So if you could really extrapolate based off of the incorrect presidential polls versus the actual result, they end up with the Senate actually skewing to the right by roughly the same amount. Same case in Montana and Kansas. Both of these races were winnable, but the Republicans ended up winning by very strong margins. And I think that the Democratic Party is going to be looking for new leadership following this election, whether that's replacing Nancy Pelosi, whether that's replacing Chuck Schumer, whatever it might be. The Democratic Party is very angry with themselves because these races were winnable. All 7 on here at some point in time could have flipped. Leading up to Election Day, I would probably take out South Carolina and take out Alaska, but for the rest of them, these were absolutely winnable. Maine really strikes a nerve with me because that is a state that voted for Joe Biden 7 points more than it did in 2016. 7 points more, and Susan Collins ended up winning this by nearly double digits. Okay, even in a scenario with ranked choice voting, it isn't enough to put Sarah Gideon over the top, which is why it has already been characterized as a Susan Collins state. She is in for another 6-year term in a state that voted for Biden by 10 points. So even with a swing to an expected margin in Maine, it's just fascinating that the Republican Party was able to do better in some of these races. And also, I think this also points out to the fact that the Democratic Party, if they were to rig the election, probably would rig the Senate races as well. They wouldn't really forget about that. But again, believe what you will. The facts are that this race and this election is not fraudulent. Donald Trump really is losing the election. But the Republican Party should be happy. They, did very well in the Senate. They survived the Senate, which was, 75-25 in terms of a chance of a Democratic victory versus a Republican victory in the Senate. And they're heading into 2 runoffs that could end up determining party composition. But at the end of the day, they will remain at least at 50 seats, The worst case possibility for the Republicans is a 50-50 tie, and they forget there are a number of conservative Democrats out there who may be having to face their constituents if they end up voting for something, and the Republican Party needs them to either abstain or vote against. So, like I said, they survived the Senate, but one thing that truly shocks me, that really, hurts the Democratic Party heavily, is the House of Representatives. Take a look at these chances. Now, I know you may not personally like 538. Following this election, I don't think a lot of people will be using it as much as they have. But looking at these results, the Democratic Party had a roughly 0 to 50% chance of either losing the majority or reaching 239. 239 was the average, around the median. And this is around the 50% mark of scenarios, which means 50% of the scenarios outlined in their model occurred where the Democrats won over 239 seats. In fact, the Democrats are poised to win the House of Representatives by single digits. I mean, the scenario of that happening was very slim. Right now, it's on track to be 222, 223. This is literally in the probably, quarter 1 percentile of all scenarios. It's just not possible, or it wasn't possible, really. Looking at it, nobody really thought that this would be the outcome. It would be so unlikely. It was so unlikely. But the Democratic Party really messed up. When they averaged gaining 6 seats, look at the House of Representatives results. The Republican Party has already gained 5 seats. 5 seats. And the Democratic Party has not been declared the winners of the House of Representatives yet. They have not been declared the winners of the House of Representatives yet. They had a very strong majority, 232. It was reminiscent of, following 2006 going into 2008. But this was not a 2008 election victory. While the map may show that Biden will win the election, at the end of the day, the margins do matter, and it was still a very close election. The Senate races did not end up anywhere near a 2008 number. 2008, the Democrats had a 59-41 majority. If you don't know that, it's crazy. For a short period of time, they had 60 seats, 59-41. Look at the map now. The Republicans are on track to retain Senate control, and at a minimum, they'll be at 50 seats, which means Kamala Harris will need to break the tie every single time. And then as for the House of Representatives, look at it. 212 seats for the Democrats. They had 232. 20 Democratic seats are too close to call, and they've already lost, 5 seats. 5 seats. That's crazy. The Democrats are probably very unhappy with where they stand today. If I was in the Democratic Party and I was a Democratic operative, I would be looking to new leadership because this is not something that should have happened. The Democratic Party in presidential election years before this year has almost always gained seats in the House and gained seats in the Senate. They've checked off the Senate, sure, by 1 seat, but it's nowhere near what 538 was expecting at an average of roughly 52 seats. And the House of Representatives, they've lost seats. And they're on track to lose quite a bit more with these outstanding races. Look at the Republican outstanding races. Things can change. The Democratic Party could do better. But I think that it's just very unfortunate for their party and very unfortunate for Speaker Pelosi that the Democratic Party, under her watch, lost seats in a year that had record-breaking turnout. 2018 rivaled presidential election turnout. 2020 did way more than that. And both candidates have now surpassed the most amount of votes cast for any presidential election candidate in history. And the Democrats, in return, ended up having to pay the price in the House of Representatives, in the Senate, and they narrowly edged out the presidency, which is still not 100% solid, but I'd say it's going to Biden. I just wanted to, point this out that the Democrats, while they do have to celebrate the presidential margin, have nothing really to celebrate in the Senate or in the House of Representatives. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2020 election videos. Tomorrow, I have a college interview. Wish me good luck. I will update you guys following that. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.